Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Scottish Championship show here on Talk Scottish Football, the show with the worst outros in YouTube history and today, and the worst intros as well, as you can tell by the absolute shit show you're watching right now. But yeah, I'm joined by Adam again for another wonderful episode of the show that reviews the best league in the world. And Adam, it was a great weekend for me last weekend, but I've got a feeling that maybe it wasn't the best for you.
No, absolutely not. I've got to be honest, Dave. I am dreading this episode.
Nice.
But it's listen, that's the highs and lows that the championship and ultimately football brings, doesn't it? So
yes, of course. And it was a really interesting last weekend because Dunfermline were absolutely awful for the large part, but managed to come out with a victory. We'll start at East End Park, why not? Since they were the big victors of last weekend in a number of different senses. Craig Wighton in on debut, which raised a few eyebrows. We've got Kevin O'Hara chomping at the bit. Dom Thomas was back. Didn't think he would start, and he starts and he gets two wonderful goals. The first, an instinctive finish from a Fraser Murray low shot, he diverted goalwards. The second, a brilliant header. He only really had 3 chances in the game, scored 2 and could have got a hat trick. And what were your thoughts, sort of seeing that coming through the Craig Wighton show at East End Park?
it was absolutely no surprise whatsoever. No, I think if we're being honest, he's looking more like an Aidan Keane loan rather than a Gavin Riley, isn't he? So
yes,
seems to have got off to a fantastic start. And obviously, I watched the goals back. The first is a really instinctive finish and a lovely little flick, but I'm really impressed with the header. The near post run to then obviously glance it into the far stick is fantastic finish, and goes to show what he's capable of. Obviously, didn't get the chances or the necessary chances at us really. So looks to be a shrewd bit of business for the Powers already.
One thing I talked about on Powers Talk recorded last night, it's just going up this afternoon, was the thing that impressed me most about him. I didn't know he had it in his game, if I'm honest. I thought he was a little bit similar to McManus in terms of, can run the channels, works hard, got a goal in him, but he was so comfortable dropping between the lines and picking the ball up. The amount of times he'd come in and receive it from, say, Banks or Murray at feet and turn. I didn't know he had that. Is that something you guys saw at Hearts?
He seems to have a really good footballing brain, and certainly when you see sort of players talk about training and whatever, he seems to have really impressed throughout his Hearts career in training. So I think it's just confidence, and he should obviously. We've talked about it before on this show, and that if you're a striker, there's always that onus about the first goal. He's managed to bag a brace on his debut, so that's the literally ideal start. And it's whether he can just keep it going from here and maintain it, because certainly he seems to thrive off confidence and recent form. Yeah,
and it was he could have had a hat trick with what would have been just one of the goals of the season had it gone. I don't know if you saw it. It was just a beautiful bit of play, and he almost converted it. But from an Alloa point of view, I mean, for Dunfermline, that was pretty much all we did. First 15 minutes, we looked great, and then we just fell apart. We couldn't really get going again, and a large part of that was down to Alloa. And we've said it a few times on this show. I feel like their league position and their points haul doesn't really reflect their performances and their ability. I mean, I thought they were brilliant, so well drilled, penned Dunfermline back for large parts, had chances but couldn't get the goal. And Peter Grant was not very happy with the referee post-match, shall we say?
No, I mean, listen, I think that's just a frustration thing, isn't it? Because by all accounts, Alloa deserved something from the match.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's obviously pulled a Robbie and is blaming a match official. So
yeah,
sometimes that's not the best look, but I don't know. It's bound to be frustrating because, like you say, it seems as though they have been somewhat robbed this season. And obviously, with a shortened season, they've probably picked the worst one to be the unluckiest in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know it was an absolute heist of the century for Dunfermline. We really didn't deserve 3 points. I mean, we hung on at the end. Some great defending, to be fair, but I can understand his frustration. As he said, I think the ref just took the brunt of it. The goal that was disallowed, I thought at the time, was harsh, but I haven't seen a still. There's a photo of it. Dennis Cameron's got a handful of Murray's shirt, and the penalty kick I did think was a penalty, so I can feel for him a little bit. But again, it's one of those. It's just frustration, and you look at the way Queens have gone about their business recently. Arbroath have gone about their business. When you've got Ayr and Inverness in the positions directly ahead of you, and they're not going to stick around there for too much longer, you wouldn't have thought. It's looking a bit bleak for Alloa just now, but having said that, if they can just find a killer edge, they might do okay. But let's move along, and we might as well move to Tynecastle, where a coupon buster, if ever I've seen one. I think most people would have predicted I think I said 3-0. 3-0, I think I said. I can't remember. But it looked like it would be a comfortable Hearts victory, but yet again, sluggish, a bit boring, lacking a clinical edge up front. And you know who could provide that? He was over the fourth. He was over the bridge. Craig Wighton would have been all the difference.
I couldn't help but tweet off the Perth to Paisley account that I reckon that the boy Wighton at Dunfermline could do a job for us. Listen, only Hearts could find a way to not win that match. 26 shots. I think it's only about a handful on target, so that literally speaks volumes, like you say. But for the most part, you're right. We are dull as dishwater. I mean, Ryan is literally bang on with the main pod because I am not a happy chappy whatsoever. Yeah. I thought Morton did really well, though, in terms of, they shut up shop at Capello and it came back to bite them, whereas it seemed a much more regimented defensive performance. Then they nick one on the break with a fantastic strike from Craig McGuffey. And then the panic begins to set in, I think, from a Hearts perspective.
Jamie Walker's kind of dragging you guys through just now. He's really hit form in the last sort of month or so, and no one else seems to be following him.
No, I say he's the man in the moment on my podcast, but my co-host Daniel, he's not having it. I just think, I don't know whether it's kind of there was that sort of incentive to grab 50 goals, and obviously now he's done so with a fantastic header, but. Honestly, there comes games where he starts and is largely ineffective, and he comes off the bench and is the best player on the park. So once we can find that sort of consistency from Jamie Walker, I think we'll see the player that he was under Robbie first time around, hopefully. It's
really annoying me because you guys are just like doing everything you can to kind of not pull away completely. There's no way that anyone will catch you, right? But there's these like people still in the film fan base who think, well, listen, if we win our game at hand, that's it. It's down to 8 points, and they've not been great, but we play them. I'm like, no. If we'd have beaten you guys at Tynecastle, maybe there was a half chance. But it might be like the season where a team win a league title, but yet nobody's really pleased because. You've got, in a way, this is kind of pre-season for next season for you guys. I mean, you've got to go up this year, no?
Oh, absolutely. I think it'd be a shocking look after, the summer that we had if we didn't bounce back at the first attempt. And speaking of bouncing back, I think this is the first time that we've bounced back not with a win from a real disappointing result. And I think that in itself sort of sums up the season. The cup final, we're 2 penalty kicks away from winning a Scottish Cup, and yet it's a case of so close, and we should be happy with that, but you can't help but think what could have been. And for this league season, again, it's kind of it's an if and when we win it, but could we win it that bit more convincingly?
How much of this do you think is down to the fact that the last time you guys were down here, you absolutely pissed it? Whereas, like, you look at Dundee United and Hibs have struggled so much, but there's kind of this thing that maybe a lot of your fan base maybe expected that this would be similar to, what was it, 2014, was it, the last time you were down here?
14-15, yeah.
14-15. So do you think that's kind of an impact on what people think you should be doing this year?
I think that complacency is not only a big thing within the fan base, but perhaps also within the playing squad. I kind of understand it more from a fan base perspective because they look at the facilities available to us, the resources and what have you. But the playing squad, ultimately, a large chunk of that got us relegated. So I don't know where they've got this arrogance from.
Yeah,
but that's just my personal opinion.
How do you think Mr. Nielsen enjoyed his vantage point? It's a cracking photo of him up there. Loved it.
I saw the side by side of the boy from Little Britain in the wheelchair, and there was one of these Hearts pages that shared it about the film Dodgeball, and it's like the five Ds of Dodgeball, and just that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And what is the point in a touchline ban in this day and age, in this current predicament as well?
You might as well just not let him in the ground. I don't get it.
I mean? It's just I don't understand it.
I noticed he had like a wee earpiece and he was talking down to him. Could he not have just shouted? Like, surely they heard it.
It's an empty ground. I don't understand. And Tiny surely got that echo, but I don't know.
Anyway, just finally, from a Morton point of view, they're in that sort of cluster of teams that could still potentially get sucked into a relegation battle. So a vital point, especially in a game that they're not really expected to pick up any points.
No, absolutely. And like I say, I was really impressed from them defensively. And it's just that one lapse of concentration that ultimately leads to the Hearts goal as well. So certainly positives to build on for sure, definitely from a Morton perspective.
We said last week that one of the games of the weekend was going to be at Somerset, Ayr against Inverness. I think we both predicted Ayr wins, I think, with home advantage.
Yes, I think
so
that's right.
we were both made to look a little bit foolish as Inverness went down there and got the result. Daniel Mccann and Shane Sutherland on target. And it's mad to look at the league table and look at where those two are. I mean, Ayr now second bottom. It's mental. I mean, they're both kind of in that predicament where they need to put a run together.
I said exactly that. I cannot believe that Ayr are in the relegation playoff place. And I think you actually said it, you might have said it on the main pod, actually,
yes.
that you reckon that one of those two will end up in the relegation playoff place.
It's now, a bonkers bold prediction, but we'll see where it goes.
Listen, it's looking all right, given Arbroath's recent upturn in form as well. But yeah, Ayr had a couple opportunities, but nothing really major fell for them in the final third, to be honest. And defensively, very, very poor. I think, is it Shane Sutherland's goal in particular? Nikolai Todorov can take Mark Ridgers' free kick on his foot. Nobody really makes an effort. He then strikes towards goal, and Shane Sutherland is the worst bit of control I've ever seen. They're too busy claiming for offside, which is one of my biggest bugbears. You're taught
play the whistle.
As a kid, exactly. Literally just took the words exactly out of my mouth. You're taught as a kid, play at the whistle. They don't do that. They switch off, and then lo and behold, it's 2-0, and that's 3 points for Caley Thistle.
Yeah, and Mark Kerr is now in a position where he could be under a little bit of pressure. I mean, I watched it a lot. I covered them a few times January last year, and I was really impressed. I mean, I think they beat Inverness in one of the games I'd done. I can't remember. I think they beat Ross County in the Cup as well, and they looked really, really, really good. And a lot of that was the solidity they had at the back. They kind of, they were nice and strong at the back. Through the middle, they had players that could create. They had Forrest, they had Stephen Kelly, Moffat, and the boy Drennan up front. And now they just seem to kind of lack any of that. I think we kind of forget that how big a loss Alan Forrest and Stephen Kelly have been to that side. But when you're losing your defensive stability as well, it's kind of like you're in no man's land in that league. And we've said it so many times, you go and lose 2-3 in the bounce, you're in big, big trouble, and they need to find some form rapid. And yeah, I wonder if that prediction will come through. I made it, I just chucked it out there. I'm just, why not? But yeah, Arbroath are flying, and let's move on to Arbroath, because they were another side that made my weekend, and I look at them film and getting the 3 points right. How are Wraith doing? How are Dundee doing? And I thought Arbroath might get. I don't know if I predicted the win. I can't remember. I feel I might.
You said Arbroath would get something.
I definitely felt they would. And Chris Doolan with a lovely finish, great ball through from Mccann, I think it was, and just a dinked finish from Doolan. And at home, they just seem so strong just now. I thought this was coming from Arbroath. I think in the first episode of the show we did, they weren't looking great, but I kind of said they were so good last season, they'll find that form. And I mean, they're unbeaten for a good wee while now, or if they're not, certainly they've won a lot more than they've lost recently, and they are now looking like they could really pull away from that relegation battle.
Yeah, I think they're unbeaten this calendar year, actually. And obviously, Jack Hamilton was a big boost, but he was even benched, and it's great to see that Chris Doolan's obviously taken that weight off his shoulders with contributing with a goal. I think it's something like 13 points from a potential 21, 12 and 6 or something. So obviously, averaging 2 points per game, you're bound to be there or thereabouts. And obviously it's proven with, Arbroath's ascent up the table. So listen, I think the playing surface, I don't want to turn into my gaffer here, but the playing surface wasn't great. But I just like the fact that Arbroath seems to, it's almost like they use the weather to their advantage as well. And obviously not the best conditions. Very disappointed with Rovers, I've got to be honest. I think that's probably the worst I've seen them. And I think it's told in the match stats. I think it's 1 shot on target or something like that. But obviously, that'll suit you down to a T. So
yeah, absolutely. The thing is with Rovers, I wish I'd done the research on this because I thought about it. I think I mentioned it in the last show. Their record on grass this year is rubbish in terms of scoring goals. They haven't scored that many goals on grass at all. They scored obviously the Astro at home. They scored loads at home. I think they scored a few. They scored a few at Queens. And what are the others? Is it just Queens and Rovers? Tiny. Well, yeah, I mean, there's the exception, but I mean, even at East End, they didn't look that great. But I mean, wow, I mean, I kind of thought they would hit a sticky patch at some point. They haven't done it yet, and I'm not saying that they're in it now, but I mean, they've got. Let me check who they've got this weekend because I completely forgot who they've got this weekend. They've got Alloa this weekend, which might be okay at home, but then they've got the Derby the week after. So it's going to be a big week for Rovers. But yeah, disappointment for John McGlynn, but I was delighted to see that result come through, sitting in the press box at East End. So let's move on to the other result that made my weekend, and it was Alan Johnston's Queen of the South that are still flying thanks to George Galloway's Boxing Day visit. He's kept them going. And by the way, there's your goal of the season with Willie Gibson. Oh my God, what a strike.
An absolute
what a strike. You wouldn't see Andy Halliday doing that, would you?
No comment.
Actually, I remember he did that in the cup final, did he not, against Hibs? He scored a screamer.
Yeah, but it's not a maroon shirt, so
no, so it doesn't count, does it?
No.
But yeah, what a result for Queens, and it was one of those that I kind of had a feeling they might get something, but didn't touch it for the coupon. But I mean, Alan Johnson, he's turned it around big time now.
That's right, because I think you had 3-0 Dundee, but then you also said you would be surprised if Queens sort of nicked a couple on the break, and I think Dundee just looked really naive defensively again. For all their
Queens had 2 shots on target and scored 3 goals. Tells you all you need to know.
The second goal is an absolute. I mean, when your luck's in, it's truly in. Ricochets left, right, and centre, but no, I mean, even the first, obviously, Isaiah Jones won a penalty against us, and he seemed to do exactly the same at Dens. So
he's rapid, that boy.
Somebody needs to click onto that instantly. But yeah, the boy Opalai, he seems to bag a couple from the spot, and he looks much better as a defensive midfielder than he did sort of at centre half when I'd seen him earlier on in the season. So it's funny how even just a little position change like that can obviously benefit the entire team. And like I say, the second is fortunate, but there's absolutely no stopping Willie Gibson's goal. And Dundee, I think, can do a little bit more defensively in order to try and sort of press and, prevent the shot from coming in, but take nothing away from the strike, because it's an absolutely fantastic finish.
Yeah, it's a game that if you're a Dundee fan, that's not acceptable losing that at home. Especially with the squad they've got. We've said it so many times, the wages. Cummings, I know, gets a goal, but I mean, the quality they've got in that squad, they're just not games they can afford to be losing. They should be right behind Hearts. There's no doubt about it. With the squad and the money they've got, they should be chasing you guys right to the death. But the reality is they're now at the top 4, which is just remarkable at this time of the season. It looked like they turned a corner. I think I've said a couple of times, I still fancy them to finish second. And at the moment, I'm not changing that prediction, but God almighty, they're kind of starting away big time. Yeah, absolutely.
It really is. Just an afternoon, a few positives. And like you say, I think really Jason Cummings' goal is virtually about the only one that I can see. So very disappointing from a D perspective. But yeah, I mean, they've obviously got some games in hand, but I don't know. Defensively, again, I just felt as though they were really, really poor.
I mean, you look at the league table, Queen's now in 4th, Dundee with 3 games in hand. I think it is all kind of pointing towards what we've said, that the top 4 is pretty much nailed on at this point, which is making me very, very nervous. The fact that I've never been this confident about us getting anything. The fact that I'm so confident we're going to finish the playoffs, it's just making me nervous. But yeah, great result for Dunfermline. They were the big victors of the weekend. Let's the last couple of games, I think. Was there another game at the weekend? Let me think. What have I missed? I feel like I've missed something. No, I haven't. We've got all 5. Nice. And then last night, was it last night or was it Tuesday night? It was Tuesday night. Inverness at home to Alloa, a game that wasn't called off, surprisingly. Looked like it had postponement written all over it. And Alloa, kind of thought for the large part they were going to get 3 points in this camera, put them ahead early on. But then 2 goals in 2 minutes from Wallace Duffy and James Keating's got Inverness back in it before Alan Troughton, that man, the stalwart for Alloa, got a penalty right at the end and scored it. But again, for Peter Grant, he'll be looking at it and thinking, God, that could have been 3 points. Yeah,
particularly, like you say, having led for so long. We mentioned Jamie Walker being the Hearts man at the moment. Ennis Cameron seems to be exactly that for Alloa. Now, obviously, more goals than his air spell earlier on in the season, and looks to be a really good capture on loan from Kelly. So yeah, he seems a handful. Whenever I've seen him, I didn't realise the sheer size of him.
He bullied Ewan Murray at the weekend. Absolutely bullied him.
Oh, he's enormous. But again, obviously, it's question marks defensively, given, like you say, I mean, 2 goals in 2 minutes, particularly having protected a 1-0 lead, is shocking. But obviously, then they've got enough to kind of get themselves back into the game. So, I mean, I think they lost out really kind of on the weekend's results. So a point on the road, not the worst results.
Yeah, it's one of those in isolation. That's a great result for Alloa, but kind of like with the context of what's happened in the last week and how other teams are doing, they need to find some results, and they don't really strike me as a team that's going to go and win 3-4 on the bounce. They kind of need to nick them out wherever they can. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Peter Grant's feeling this week. I mean, I don't think his players can give him any more. They're one of the hardest working teams I've seen. They run and they run and they run, but the luck doesn't seem to be in at the moment. For Inverness, it's been a tough week on and off the field, but 4 points this week is a good return considering the kind of form they have been in. Let's move on to the news. John Robertson's news this week. He's stepping down for the short-term family bereavement, loss of his sister, obviously a tough time. And he's somebody who's well loved by kind of everyone, Robbo. I've raved about him for so long, saying he's the best manager in the Championship. I'm still standing by that. He'll come back there when he doesn't turn things around at Inverness. But Neil McCann gets the nod. I think there was a few names chucked about for that job. Neil McCann's one of those. If he was as good a manager as he was a pundit, he'd have a top job, because he seems to know what he's talking about. Obviously, he's got a good relationship with John Robertson, so that'll probably help him. But that could go two ways for Inverness. That.
I just find the whole situation kind of so bizarre. Obviously, was devastated to hear Robbo's news, because Robbo is, of course, my dad's hero. And yeah, it just, obviously that's a great shame, and gutted really, given the build-up kind of to the weekend match. Obviously, not being there for the Hearts game, where he's obviously signed all these virtual tickets and what have you, and just wish him absolutely all the very best, and obviously condolences to the entire family. But for Neil McCann, it's a strange one, because what happens if, and it's not really that much of a stretch, if he does go on a little run, what kind of happens then? If he's only in charge for, say, 2-3 games and wins them all, it just seems bizarre to me. I don't know, but just, I think part of the problem you said about him being a great pundit, and I agree, he's one of my favourites. I think he's got good ideas. It's just a case of needing the personnel to execute them, isn't it, really? So
it strikes me as Robbo and Neil McCann as a two would be a great partnership in the dugout. It really does. I mean, they complement each other really well. Robbo's got that experience, that know-how, way with the players, kind of disciplinary and all that kind of stuff. He's got all that to his game. And you can add Neil McCann, who's obviously great ideas, been there, done it. It would probably be a great partnership. I know that I listened to Neil McCann's interview. He said he'd spoke to him, and he wasn't wanting to change much. But I'm kind of thinking, well, listen, things haven't been great, so you probably do want to change a little bit, because it's not been going that well for Inverness. But as you said, what if he's there for a couple of months and takes them up to within a ball of the playoffs, and then he has to? Do you know what I mean? It's such a strange thing to find themselves in. But I think there's a few Inverness fans that are a bit petrified, having looked at what he did at Dundee, that it could go from bad to worse. But hey-ho, I mean, 4 points this week's a good return for Inverness, and we'll have to see how they do on Friday night. We know what Hearts are like away from home on a Friday night, so probably be 3 points for him on his first game. Who knows?
Honestly, would not surprise me. I'm starting to think, even from a reverse psychology perspective, that I'm going to bank on a 0-0 draw in the hope that we might get an entertaining game and Hearts may just come out on top. So fingers crossed, because all these BBC Scotland Friday night fixtures just seem to be eye-bleeding, snooze fests.
That's the one at East End, really. That was the big one against you. That was a cracker that night. But yeah, that's kind of one of that game. I mean, I think it's kind of difficult to talk in depth about that game, because there's just this perception of what Hearts are and what they are on a Friday night. And as you just mentioned, it can be absolutely awful. But you said earlier on that it's the first time you bounce back from a defeat without a win. So it's one of those now. I mean, surely they're not going to go 3 without a win. Surely.
I'd like to hope not, but our track record up in Inverness as well.
Oh, I saw that. Is it 2010 the last time you won up there?
Yeah, 2010. I think I shared that on. Somebody messaged me that on the Perth to Paisley account. Could not believe that 2010.
Mental.
So I mean, I know they've not played all that frequently, but even still,
we've got to feel like that. I mean, we've not won up at Dens since 2000. I can't remember. We've not won at Inverness since 2007. There's just a few of them we've got in this league that have held us back in recent years. But yeah, that's mad, that 2010.
And I think obviously the disappointment is that Robbo won't be there for me, because traditionally, or certainly in the past few seasons when we've played Inverness, it's been a scoosh, and I don't know whether that's just.
You saying he's lying down?
Well,
sound a bit like Chris Sutton there with that comment.
Don't want to throw allegations out, but
yeah, I mean, I can't listen. If Inverness go and get anything from that game again, maybe it's the start of a turnaround. I'll be interested to see what Neil McCann does in terms of the training. Because this is why it's so mad, because he can't put his own mark on that, surely.
No, I know.
But then he's not an experienced enough manager to kind of keep things. Honestly,
Robbo's work.
And it's going to either be. I can't see it being in the middle. It will be either horrific or he'll do a brilliant job. For me, I've just got it set. There's going to be no in between.
I agree. Yeah.
But let's go with predictions. Help me out with your prediction. I know you've got a bet on 0-0, but
yeah, I'll stick with that.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go 1-0 Inverness. There you go. I just can see it happening. It's going to be a disgusting Nikolai Todorov goal. He's not scored since Halloween, so this would be horrific if he did.
I get the feeling it'll be James Keatings.
Oh yeah, he
if
likes a
anyone.
goal, doesn't he? But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. You lot play so many Friday night games. It's I feel like most shows we've done, Hearts play the next night. But anyway, moving on to the rest of the weekend. A few decent games, a few tricky ties. Let's go to Ayr. Let's go to Somerset. Ayr against Arbroath. A relegation 6-pointer.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously, given Arbroath's recent form, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get something. And Ayr's Somerset record's good for the most part. But now I think that's back-to-back defeats, is it? To us and... No, did they win in between? Back-to-back defeats to us and Inverness. But I felt like did they beat Alloa in between, maybe?
Yes.
Is that right? Yes, they did. So... I don't know. I mean, I guess it just depends on which United turn up. Obviously, they've got to sharpen up defensively, like we've touched on, and refine that goal-scoring touch, which I know is easier said than done. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. And I think they'll know that, given Arbroath's form, like I say, it'll be a tough task for them at the weekend, certainly.
I think the Somerset kind of thing kind of goes out the window in this game a little bit because, it's a small ground beside the seaside, can get a bit windy, can get a bit, blustery. The pitch ain't great.
Accustomed to that.
Yeah, so it might be the one team that are kind of used to that kind of thing, and it'll be vice versa as well. But yeah, I just think when Arbroath are in this level of form, Dick Campbell gets them so well motivated, they're so well disciplined. They've got goals in the team now. They're a big side. They can bully you physically, and I just think, especially at set pieces, which Ayr defensively haven't been great recently. Just strikes me that Arbroath could at least get a point, but I actually think they're going to get all three. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Arbroath.
Oof.
2 upsets I've predicted so far. Oof.
I've said that they'll get something. I'll go 1-1.
Okay, I like it. So that's actually, we've both not picked the favourites so far in these games. That's mental. Right, let's go to Capello. Why not? Greenock Morton against Dundee strikes me as a disgusting game of football.
Absolutely.
But I mean, dearie me, I don't even know where to start with this because a good result for Morton last week. Capello can be a tough place for people to go, but again, Dundee have not been great. They need points. I don't know. I definitely don't fancy watching it.
Absolutely not. I'd be very intrigued to see the prices regarding that pay-per-view. But yeah, I mean, I didn't anticipate Morton scoring at Tynecastle because I don't think that they're all that convincing offensively.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same stretch, I don't think that Dundee are all that convincing defensively. So this could be an absolute snooze fest. It could be goals galore. Yeah, I really don't know what to expect. I probably would just fancy Dundee. I don't know. I just feel as though it's reputation and the fact that they really are in dire need of a win. And ultimately, that might be, the only incentive that sort of gets them over the line, if you like.
Well, yeah, again, I'm going to ignore the favourite and predict a 1-1 draw. There you go. I just think Morton at home. Again, I can see it being a big weekend. I can just see the league getting closer again this weekend. It'll all compact itself yet again. I just fancy Dundee 1-1. But Charlie Adams is going to score for Dundee. There we go.
He's been quiet in recent
weeks. Drought. Shocking. Yeah. Dropped.
Quite the fall from grace. So yeah, no, he probably will bag, an assist from a set piece.
It'll be a whipped in free kick that'll miss everyone and creep in at the far post. There you go.
Sounds about right. I wouldn't go past 1-1. I'll say that Dundee will sneak it 2-1.
Okay, I like it. Right, let's go to Starks Park, San Starco for Wraith against Alloa. Oh, I don't even know where to start with this. Wraith, yeah, I mean, this to me, probably looking at the fixture, should be the easiest. The only one I'd probably maybe feel comfortable putting a bet on, because I think Wraith at home, having lost last week, with the derby on the horizon, will look to bounce back. And at home, they've been a different animal at home. They scored quite a few goals at home, so yes, I think Wraith will get back to their best, score a couple of goals, and just Alloa's bad luck. I think Alloa might be doomed, if I'm honest. Not for the want of trying, but it just doesn't seem to be their year. And because they've had 2 good performances, despite not getting the results, for them to keep that performance level up for a 3rd game running is going to be a bit of an ask for them. And I just think Wraith will want to keep on Dunfermline's heels with the big game on the horizon next week. So I'm thinking Wraith for that one.
Yeah, exactly the same as me, mate. And to be honest, you made a great point about Ayr and Arbroath. This is another where it's sort of that plastic park.
Yeah,
I just feel as though It's two of probably the best footballing sides in the division.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Going
Yeah.
toe to toe. So I think it'll be a really intriguing game. But again, wouldn't be surprised to see Rovers bounce back given how poor they were up at Gayfield. So I'll go. This is harsh on Alloa, but I'm going to go for a comfy Wraith win, and I'm going to say that Rovers will win 2-0.
Nice. I am thinking 3-1 to Rovers, so I'm in a similar line with you. I just think Alloa might nick one. And finally, well, not finally, but finally for the weekend, we'll round off at Palmerston. Dunfermline travel down there on Saturday. Former manager Alan Johnston in charge of Queens, and I don't really know what to expect from this one. Our record down there isn't. I said yesterday that it wasn't great, but actually it's not as bad as I feel like it was. We won there last year about this time, but it strikes me like it's going to be a horrible, horrible game for us from a Dunfermline fans' point of view. Just I think Queens are going to make it so tough. Classic Park we're not used to. Oh, I don't know. But flipping that, and it's the thing I'm going to say before every game. I look at our squad now and I think, right, even if it's not going well after 60 minutes, we've got quality in reserve. So I don't know. I am feeling like we'll win again, but I don't see it being pretty. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Queens are one of the informed teams in the division, and obviously you have come off that fantastic weekend. So again, this could be a really tasty clash. And obviously there's the whole AJ factor surrounding it. A tough one to predict. I certainly would not go anywhere near this for a coupon again. But
there really isn't any of the games that the weekend in the Championship you touch. Really?
No, because even Rovers are probably the most likely, but obviously they lost last weekend. So I don't know. It's a dodgy one. I really don't know what to expect down at Palmerston, to be honest. Would not be surprised to see either side win. And on that basis, I'll say probably a 1-0 draw or a 2-0 draw.
So I'll be honest, my head's telling me something similar. But then again, I think that's just my nervousness coming into it, because actually when I think about it,
back your boys, mate.
And I think I've got good reason to back them, because that's two poor performances recently. I mean, Arbroath was shocking, Alloa wasn't great.
But you're still grinding out,
Exactly, and I just feel like we're due a big performance, and I think we've got so many that are playing for places now. We've got the derby on the horizon next Friday. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with Dunfermline. I'm going to go 2-1 to the Pars, and I think that it won't be pleasant for me to watch, but we'll get there in the end. Only £10 for the pay-per-view for that one. I'm quite happy with that. That's very reasonable. I'm trying to think, because I've been lucky enough to go quite a few, so I've not had to pay for many of them, but I don't think there's any cheaper than £10 in the league. I wouldn't have thought.
No, that's certainly a lot better than £18.50, isn't it?
Fucking right it is. I don't know what the standard will be like, though. At least for Hearts TV, the standard was pretty good. But I'd imagine, I don't know if they're still using the Pixel lot or not. If they are, that'll be just horrendous, because it's a dreadful experience. But we'll have to see. And let's move on to the final game we're going to cover, which is Tuesday night next week. And it is Dundee against Everest? No.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yes.
I think that's right.
I've lost my list of fixtures. At Dens, yes. Is it at Dens? Why have I got a feeling that it's not at Dens?
I think so.
Have you got them in front of you? Help me out here. Is it Dens? Is it Dens? Tuesday the 2nd of March, Dundee against Inverness. And my prediction for this one is postponement. There you go.
Yeah,
there's the prediction. Yeah, I can just see this game being postponed. The pitch at Dens is a joke. And I don't know if you've seen some of the photos of it. It is just horrific. But in terms of the postponement league, Everest and Dundee are fighting out for that title.
Games in hand are plenty, don't they?
Love it.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things. I think the kind of big bugbear that everybody's got is United still being able to play at Tannadice when Dundee can't at Dens, despite literally being over the road from one another. But
tell you what, it's an advocate for plastic parks.
I guess so.
Listen, yeah, I mean, those games that have been called off at Dens, if it was a plastic surface, it wouldn't have been the case. But yeah, let's just assume the game is on. That for me is another one. Dens, at Dens, they have to win Dundee. I mean, the home games is they really want to assert themselves. And listen, Dunfermline and Dundee and Wraith are all fighting for second spot. I know they've got to make the playoffs and stuff, but they're all got the eye on that second spot. It is huge in your chances of promotion in the playoffs, not having them 2 extra games.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think Dundee at home. It's kind of hard to preview this one just now because we don't know how the weekend's going to go, so we don't know how that'll have an influence.
Literally exactly about to say.
Because I mean, Neil McCann's Inverness could be the best team in the world and put 4 past you lot, or they could get 4 put past them. We don't know, but I mean, just kind of looking at it as a fixture, I'd fancy Dundee at home.
again, it all depends on how Dundee bounce back, I suppose. So, yeah, again, it is tricky to call. And like you say, a lot will be dependent on... I'm very intrigued to watch Inverness on Friday night, see, what, if anything, has changed, because we're obviously adamant that they need a change in order to get out of the kind of the rut that they're in. So, probably be a score draw or a narrow Dundee win, I would have thought.
Yeah, I definitely can see something similar. But yeah, that'll do us. I don't think there's anything else we've missed. Any other thoughts on the championship or just life in general, Adam? You're amongst friends here. It's,
no, of course, I'm grateful for the opportunity. No, I don't know. I'm going to apologise to all the kind of championship show viewers and anybody that considers watching Inverness versus Hearts on Friday night in advance. Probably be an absolute stinker, but at least it's on Council Telly and we won't have to pay for it. So there's every cloud has a silver lining, exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Right, that'll do us. Let's round it off, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks very much for watching. Cheerio. I've done another shocking outro. See you, me.